so that we have nothing to fear. Okay, so our topic today is men in recovery. We have two speakers. They will be speaking about 20 minutes each. We have Maurice G. and Joe G. And welcome, Maurice, to start.
Hello, everyone in the NAG. My name is Maurice. Bear with me. I don't really enjoy doing this, but I just push myself as I do through my recovery. No matter what I'm asked, it's pretty much I just do it. I don't even question it. I've got 25 messages in my head right now. Before I got here, now they're all gone, so it has to come from the heart. And that's the way I roll. I grew up with a pretty good family of 5, and one sister that passed at 6 months old. Never really got to know her, obviously. My father was always a hard-working man. My mother always hard-working as well. She took care of foster kids a lot, and I would help her out with that stuff. And I think that's why I became her favorite son, because I was always helping her out. And she was a bit of a clean freak, and I vacuumed and I did all kinds of cleaning with her. So I became the special one. Anyhow, so let me say, I started using booze at a very young age. I had a lot of Italian friends whose fathers make wine, and I would pass Coke bottles through the window. He'd fill them up. We'd take them out to the park and drink them. And from day one, I loved it. I loved what it did for me. Made me feel superior, untouchable, just like, wow, this is good stuff. So that from that day on, pretty much when I drank, I just drank to get drunk. I didn't see any other purpose in it. Wow, scattered. Growing up in NA, I came in here, I was 28. I'm 30 years old now, so I got a couple years in. Recovery is good for you. Keeps you young. Coming in here wasn't easy. I didn't want to be around these people. I didn't think I had that much of a problem. I figured drugs was my problem, not the booze, so I fought that for a while. I fought this program tooth and nail. I guess because I always seemed to have control of my life. I never went to my father for anything. I always supported myself. You know, I had a couple of paper routes. One wasn't enough. I had to have 2. There's a sign of being an addict right there. But so I was always a go-getter. I always fend for myself, and all through life, you know, I always had nice stuff because I worked hard. Right? I left school at an early age because I had a career job, a steelworkers union. That didn't work out for too long because the foreman didn't like me, and I had to do a probationary, and they cut me loose just before I got into the union. So obviously I got a taste of the money at an early age. I was 17 years old, and once you get a taste of that paycheck every week, kind of helps out with buying booze and buying nice things. So I never went back to school, even though I enjoyed my school that I was in. It was in a trade school. And so anyways, I just got into the trades, obviously, later on, going through life. And hard worker, never was asked to cut the lawn or shovel the driveway. I was just ADHD, DDH, and H and D. I had them all, right? And plus. I was hard to keep me down. So anyhow, I just, I love to party. That was the weekends. I look forward to the weekends. We always going to the corn roast and pig roast and finding out where all the parties are. And it was a weekend thing pretty much ever since I started drinking almost. And, a little bit older, in my teens. So it was just like a party animal. I just loved to party. I loved to be, the center of attention. And then when the drugs started kicking in, I started dabbling with the dope. I was the type of guy I would try anything that you gave me to try. There wasn't too much out there that I didn't try. And then eventually I found the one that really did it for me. And then that one took off. It took off spiritually, mentally, and physically. By the end of my using, I was a mess. I was 100 pounds soaking wet. I had lost everything. My wife, who I'm still with thanks to this program of 47 years, we're together now. I have 2 beautiful daughters, a grandson, and I've been able to watch them flourish and grow up, and be present with them for the whole duration of being clean. My one daughter was 5 when I first got in, but she didn't really see too much of it. But although I shouldn't say that, because at that age they know, because Dad never came home sometimes. And I remember one time her grabbing my leg and asking me not to leave, because when I left I wouldn't come back for a couple of weeks. And it's not that I didn't love her, it's just the power of this dope. You know, we all can relate to that. It's, fucking dope, eh? Cunning, baffling, and powerful. So she got to see a little bit of it, but now she's 40 years old now, so she's seen me cleaning for a long time now. So, which is pretty fortunate. And being a man in recovery, for me, means being respectful, especially to the women that are in here. And I've always had respect for women. I've never touched a woman in my life. When I came in here, I never hit it on any of them. I was married, right? So it wouldn't be appropriate. And I can't say I haven't looked. I just don't touch. That's the rule. That's the golden rule, right? And so growing up through this recovery, they told me to get active. I mean, it took 3 years of pounding my head off the wall, 3 rehabs to finally click in, because I didn't like authority figures and I didn't like being told what to do. And when I came in here, these people were saying, do this, do that, and I'm saying, who the fuck do you think you are telling me what to do, right? So I always had that bad attitude, and like I said, I didn't even really want to be here, right? I was doing it to get my wife off my back, and my mom and my dad, and just friends, and because I always had my shit together. And I go, Maurice, man, what the fuck's going on with you, right? And I go, I'm okay. And I'm always, well, at least I still got my job. And then next thing you know, I don't have the job, and then at least I'm not sleeping on the park bench, and always looking down to boost myself up. But where did I end up? On the park bench, sleeping on concrete, back seats of cars, staircases, wherever I could lay my head, right? And that's where the disease took me, right? And my wife finally, I was dying. She said, you're gonna have to leave. You gotta get help. I can't sit and watch you die. You're dying. I said, what are you doing? I can't take it anymore. And that was pretty much the eye opener that I needed, I guess. That was the final straw. I had sold everything I owned, my nice cars, gold, jewelry, stuff my mother had made up for me, and with her stuff, and everything went in my arm, right? And it was like she couldn't take it anymore. So I had to buckle down. I knew this was the place. When I got introduced to this program, I knew deep down inside this is where I needed to be. It was the solution, right? And I did grasp a little bit of happiness in my first rehab, and coming to these meetings, it was an eye-opener. The seed was planted, right? And I felt the happiness, I felt the joy that these people were admitting to me, like showing me, and I knew this was the place. I just didn't want to do what it took. And like I said, I finally broke down and surrendered. I remember getting off the bus and throwing my arms up and saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm either going to kill myself or dive back into the program. And I was too much of a coward to kill myself, so I dove right back into the program, and I just started taking all the suggestions. I used to question everything. How's putting chairs going to keep me clean? Like, I couldn't see the concept of that, but it's selfless acts of kindness, giving of myself, not expecting anything back. Because when you're out in the street, you don't do nothing for nothing, right? So I just couldn't see it, Cleaning ashtrays. Back in the day when I came in, we were smoking. This room would be bellowing with smoke right now. Thank God it's not anymore. But, so it was cleaning ashtrays, just doing the stuff. Setting up the meetings, doing the coffee and stuff like that. And I started just diving into that. And then one lady in particular got me into the young offenders. I started going to the young offenders in the jails, started doing the service for that. And I did the service is just tons of it. I go into the high schools for a couple of 2-year terms. I was doing probation offices, the Lindsay jails, just constantly keeping myself active and giving of myself, right? Because that's what these guys told me to do, and that's what was keeping me clean. And then as the years went by, I got a little bit complacent. I'm 17 years clean. I had a good buddy there. He wanted me to store some dope. He said, "Mo, let me store some dope in your garage," right? I didn't see any harm in it. I got 30, 40 pounds of dope in my garage. No harm in that, right? I won't do any time for doing that, will I? And, it started with Dad and buying all kinds of hot shit and selling and wheeling and dealing. Adrenaline rush. My life was so calm and collected. I wasn't even doing it for the money. I didn't need the money. It was just, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I thrive on adrenaline. And that's, I fell into that, and I took my will back, obviously. And, now I'm going late to meetings every other week now, and they're tapering off, and I'm thinking, oh my God, man, I'm spinning out of control. My wife's going, what the fuck is going on? I'm trying to hide it from her, and now she knows what's going on. Now she has to kind of lie for me. I never brought it into the rooms. I was a lot more respectful for that. I justified it because it was only weed, wasn't the heavy stuff. I just rationalized everything, and that's the result of tapering off on meetings and taking your will back. And that's kind of the shit that's going to happen if you continue to do that. And all my behaviors were addict behaviors. The only thing I didn't do was pick up, and that was not far. That was just like right there around the corner. And then I finally had to snap out of it and get back into the meetings, get rid of all the shit, the dope and all that crap and the old behaviors. And it took a while. It wasn't easy. Took me another couple of years just to try and get back into the swing of recovery again, because I had lost. It's not that I lost it, but it wasn't doing it for me, because that street mentality in my head, it never goes anywhere. That's why I continue to go to meetings and I continue to do service, because I don't need that street mentality in my head anymore, right? And because it only gets me in trouble. And anyhow, so I've doubled that now. I'm over 34 years clean, thanks to these people. And I'm proud of that time, but I'll tell you, this disease doesn't give a shit how much time you got. This disease will continue to work at me regardless of my time. I'm very proud of my time, but like I said, it doesn't take long, eh? You take your will back, you leave these places. I see people with 20 years, 25 years going out, but for the grace of God, there go I. And it's very important for me to continue to do service, to continue to carry the message, because I really don't want to go back there. I lost a couple of brothers. And one in mental health, one from the disease of addiction. I questioned myself, why was I the chosen one, because I was more of a shit than they ever were. And it's just, my journey, right? Here for a purpose, here for a reason. And if you're new, just keep coming back. It'll finally click in. Stop fighting it. I fought this for so long, and there's no reason to fight it. The life I live today, man, I wouldn't trade for nothing. $1 billion, I wouldn't trade it. I love NA. I love our family. I love the process. I love watching. The joy I get from people coming in new and watching them flourish and growing into decent men, productive members of society, women too. Beautiful. I just love it. I just love to experience all that and to watch people grow in this program. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you for your undivided attention. And with that, I will leave. Thank you.
Thanks, Maurice. Next up, we have Joe G.
Hey everybody, my name is Joe and I'm an addict. I'm a member of the Serenity Seekers in Stratford. We're a lively bunch. If you ever want to come to a Ruckusy meeting, come see us. I'd like to thank the committee for asking me to take part, for all the work they've done to put this on this weekend. One of my sponsee, Robert, and I, we always say Orkney is a mandatory event for us. Come here and I was thinking about this. This is the 9th Orkney I've been to, the 11th convention I've been to, and I kind of call them a mid-air refueling station. Just get refilled on my spiritual fuel. There's a couple things we do. One of the things we do in the fall is a men's retreat, right? A group of men coming together, doing what men don't do, talking about their feelings. But it's amazing when we do that, and that wasn't a thing before, right? I don't want to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty about how we end up here as an addict, because I'm pretty sure by the time you're out in Orkney, you know how to blow up your life. I don't know that we need that process of identification once we're sitting in a room at a convention, right? And but I will talk a little bit about maybe what kind of man I was before recovery, and what kind of man recovery has been teaching me to be. And for me, it's kind of weird. I look back at some of the traits that I had developed, and I kind of don't 100% know where they came from. My dad was about the best dad you could have. He believed in talking about your feelings and giving hugs and the value of what today is, and I got an older brother, and it was about as good an older brother as you could get too. I didn't get taught grimier traits from them. Even growing up, the schools I went to, it seemed like the male-female ratio was a little bit more lopsided. There wasn't as many guys, and I don't really think it came from that either. But when I was young, I had a loss in my family that was very significant to me, and that punched a hole in my gut. And then there was this empty thing, and I didn't know how to fill it. And I started getting attention doing the wrong things. And for whatever reason, that seemed like it filled that hole a little bit for a little bit, And I started doing stuff that I never really thought about. I started to get into like fights and stuff like that, and that brought a certain kind of attention and a certain like adrenaline kind of rush, and like there was a bit of a buzz to that, and I never felt good about it after. Like a lot of things we do as addicts, right? Seems great in the moment. follow it up about 20 minutes later, and be like, what did I just do? And but there was I don't know, there was a thing about it, right? And then like, I have a sharp wit, so I didn't like throwing fists, so I'd throw words, and I cut people apart pretty good, and people would laugh. Not the person you're directing them at, but other people would laugh, and that felt good. I didn't hit them. It's not bleeding or something, right? And it also helped that everybody got a foot taller than me, and it's a lot harder to throw punches at that point, right? So throwing words seemed a lot easier. Just get big friends, you'll be fine. I do the other things that we all, I can assume that all of us did. We found other things that started to fill that hole, right? And that led me to other things, right? Like I was too lazy to work, so it was far more economic to sell dope, right? Buy a big bag, lower price, sell it off, yours are free, So you start doing that, you start running into, I'm doing that in early high school, so I'm hanging out with older dudes that are doing a certain thing, running a certain game, and I'm picking up attitudes from that, and that just kind of builds, and it keeps going. The drugs get harder, the activities become more risky, and you watch a lot of stuff on TV, gangster movies and all this stuff, and jail movies, and start building a certain kind of persona out of that, about that's what this world's about, right? And if I'm going to be in this drug world, that's what it's about. And eventually I start going in and out of jail, and that's about the least nurturing environment you can find as a dude, I think. You don't show a sign of weakness. You don't back down from nothing. You certainly don't talk about your feelings. You just build this masculinity degree that's off, right? That's just off, right? To talk about toxic masculinity, and the thing I think about that is that can spill out of us, right? It's toxic for the people around us. But for me, the bigger problem with that is it was more toxic to me. The more I enacted in it, the more it affected me, and the more toxic I became. And I didn't treat other people very kindly unless you were in my circle or you served a purpose, and then I had a different mentality with you, right? Or I could be a whole different person one-to-one, but then you get a third person in there, all of a sudden the attitude changes and the behaviors change, and I don't know. I didn't really like who I was. I didn't like who I was for a long time, and recovery showed me that some of that behavior, or most or a lot of that behavior, I was actually being a bully for a long time. And I had no idea I was a bully until I was taking up a fourth step with a guy, and he was talking about how he was affected by the guys that bullied him in high school. And I'm identifying with what he's saying, but not from his side of it. I'm identifying with the stuff that the people were doing to him. And that kind of opened my eyes to a lot of stuff about who I was or what I was about. I don't think, for the most part, I wasn't hugely horrible with women, but I certainly wasn't caring and nurturing and whatever the way I would rather have been. So I don't know. There was just a lot of things about who I had become through my addiction that I just didn't like a whole lot. So when I came into recovery, I think a lot of us can come in carrying a lot of that same stuff, right? You hear other people telling stories and talking about stuff, and we tell these war stories and we laugh at them and all that stuff, and a lot of those things we weren't exactly being great people in a lot of those stories, and but it's good to be able to look back and laugh at it in the sense that that's so ridiculous it's laughable, and I can still laugh at it like that, but I never laugh at it like that's hilarious that you did that to that person, or that's whatever. It's just it's funny that we can be that kind of a person and come in here and learn to be a totally different person. That's funny. Or that we thought that this was normal or whatever. To me, that's kind of funny. But not at the expense of the person that we threw it at. I don't know, I think I probably spent the first year of my recovery chasing recovery like I chased my dope. I chased it hard. And I went to a lot of meetings. I got a sponsor pretty early. I got into step work pretty early. I remember being about 4 or 5 months clean, and a guy picked up a one-day chip, and he came over to me after, and that guy had like 5 years. And I don't know why, in that whole meeting, he walked over to me, and he held it up, and he said, "Do you know I got this tag?" And I'm like, no, like I'm absolutely blown away because I'm new, and I'm like, "You got 5 years, you're bulletproof," you know? And he said, "I never worked a fourth step." And that hit me. And then my pen hit paper hard. And because I didn't want to be sitting around with 5 years clean starting on day one. And so I got to work, and I got into that inventory, and there was a lot of stuff in there that didn't feel very good. But I think the thing that felt the worst in that whole process of going through the steps and looking at myself was it was really hard to write about assets. I couldn't see them. All I could see in my past was how defects took over more and more and more every year. It made me, I mean, I don't want to say the kind of man that I was because I don't really think that I was really being a man. I was being an asshole. There's a difference. You know? Part of the reason I had a hard time writing about assets is that I completely lacked self-esteem. That's why I did half of the stuff that I did, half the acting out that I did. I'm going to show you some sort of bravado on the outside so that you don't see how hurt and scared I am on the inside because I don't know who the hell I am. So I'm going to put on these masks, I'm going to act a certain way, and I'm going to get respect out of that somehow. I don't know how many people respected me compared to how many people were kind to me or nice to me or treated me a certain way because I had dope. Like, if you treat your dealer like shit, you're probably not getting a deal. Right? So, I mean, I probably got more, you know, good behaviors towards me because I had something they wanted. And I try to treat them okay in those occasions because they had something that I wanted. Money. So I could re-up. Move on to the next thing. But if you weren't available for that for me, I wasn't very good to you. You know, and that's all I could look at was the times I wasn't good to anybody, or the girl that I didn't treat right, or the, you know, relationship that I could have done better. You know, the last girlfriend I had out there, I would say we had about an 8-year mutual hostage situation. And I remember when I made amends to her and she was screaming and yelling at me and whatever about this and that and all these other things that I did or didn't do or that I should have done or whatever. And it finally just kind of dawned on me, and I said to her, "You know what?" I said, "It's not a matter of whether I loved you or that I didn't love you. I loved you a lot, but I didn't know how to. I can feel all the feels I want to feel, but if I don't know how to act appropriately with it, what are they worth, right? If all my actions are the opposite of my feelings because I don't know how to enact those feelings, it's pain. It just hurts, right? And that kind of opened some eyes with me too, and I could deeper inventory stuff because I could realize that, like, hey, you know, where a lot of this is confusing is because I felt certain ways, but the things didn't end up going the way that I thought they should based on how I felt going into them. And I had to start looking at that. How do my feelings actually interact with my actions? How do my feelings and my actions come together to create the outcomes that I was creating? You know, and I get to, you know, in my second year of recovery, I'm really kind of starting to come into my own and understanding myself. And maybe a little bit more, like I can see the assets now, at least I know where they are and I can water them, right? And I got a real sharp eye on the defects. They are glaringly obvious. So I can work on those. I remember thinking, like, it's too simple when somebody said, if you want to get rid of a defect, use the asset that's the opposite. I'm like, no, it's got to be a lot more to it than that. Right? It really kind of is that simple. Find out what they are and how they act. And next time you're stepping into a defect, what would the opposite thing be, right? And was still struggling with an idea of what God is or not and whatever. And I remember hearing somebody say that God is love. So I thought, when I'm confused about what to do next, and I'm not really too down with trusting into some God-like figure, I would just ask, what would love do? Right? And if I do what love would do, I'm probably not being toxic. Right? I'm looking at what would the feeling actually do? How would I act if I'm actually enacting the feeling? What would the outcomes actually look like if I acted in love? And started to knock the corners off, right? I started to get a little smoother around the edges. And you know what? I started to get a lot less resentments. I started to feel like I enacted better behavior in a lot more situations in my life. I started to grow meaningful relationships. It's funny, too. If you actually listen to your sponsor's advice, you can start to fall into some of that, And I learned a lot about being a man from spending time with my sponsor. My first sponsor, my first full-time sponsor, I had a temp there for a bit, but my first full-time sponsor, I always say that that's the first fully honest relationship that I've ever had with anybody in my life, and it's probably the most intimate relationship I'd ever had with anybody in my life. And a lot of people don't think intimacy is what intimacy is. You can have your clothes on and have intimacy, in case you weren't sure. But it is not a sexual act, in case you missed my point. But I learned a lot there, and I watched how he talked to people and how he interacted with people and how people were drawn to him as a human being. And I'm like, that's what I'd like to be like. Not because I'm a guy, not because, whatever gender or whatever, anything. It's because he was a good human being. And I'm like, oh, maybe I need to stop figuring out what it's like to be a man and just figure out what it's like to be a human being. My second year of recovery, I very intentionally had gotten to this thing where I'm looking at everything from my side of the street, doing step work and all this stuff and re-inventorying stuff. And the second year I decided, you know what? There is an untapped resource of reality in this room that I have not really looked into. Listen to the women. Listen to them talk about how men affected their life and how it affected their addiction and how it affects their recovery. And not try to evaluate it from my side of the street. And not try to evaluate it. Not try to identify with it, because I can't identify with their experience directly. But listen to them. Listen to the heart as much or more than the words. Right? And it didn't take me very long before I made a very strong decision and a very important decision. In Stratford, we have a very lopsided gender dynamic. And, there's times where there's only one or two women that are coming to meetings on a regular basis. That's not good for them. Especially when a bunch of the dudes are not good for them. And I made a decision that it's more important for me to be a safe man in recovery than it is for me to venture off for my future. I'm there to save my life, not to find an ex-wife. And I remember hearing a speaker say, if you want to come into recovery to date, your odds are good, but the goods are odd. Careful what you ask for. But I made it very important to be a safe man in the rooms for women. And my sponsee and I have done a lot of that where we will get a couple of them and we'll take them to an out-of-town meeting where we know there's a bunch of women that are strong in recovery. We're like, you need to come meet some women. And we'll flat out, watch. There's certain guys where we'd be like, yeah, you're going to want to stay clear of that guy. Just for your own good, do it. We'll watch, and when one of those guys is over talking to one of the other girls, I'll immediately go over to another girl and say, go talk to her right now. Go get her out of that. Because I've seen more women get the wrong intended actions and never come back. I want everybody to be able to have a chance to get clean, stay clean, lose that desire, right? I want them to hear our hope and our promise. And if they're getting chased out of here because you're thinking with your dick and not with your basic text, that's not good. You know, I don't ever want to be that kind of guy. You know, I never had kids. I never had the chance to have kids because I was too busy fucking my life up in other ways. And 5 years ago, I ended up becoming a stepdad to a 15-year-old daughter. You know, and in that first year, she got hit by her boyfriend. And my defects were loud. But my assets are louder. I don't have to act on my defects. Like, be a man and talk to this kid and be like, you can't just be doing that kind of, you can't treat women this way. You can't treat anybody this way. Like, what are you doing? You're 15 years old, you're going to start hitting women now. It's not a good future ahead of you, right? This is not who you want to be, trust me. And I also had to respect her decision to keep dating this kid. It didn't take long for her to change that, you know, but like, I went from like, I don't know how to be a guy in the world to other human beings to being a father to a 15-year-old girl who's messing around with drugs, experimenting, and struggling with mental health stuff, and being able to be a father to her that she never had because her actual dad's an abusive guy. The other ones she's been around are abusive. And I got to be a man that's appropriate to a female, to a daughter, to her mother. She just had a baby. I have a little granddaughter. You know, and that little girl's going to grow up with a grandfather that knows how to treat human beings. I didn't do that. I answered questions in a step guide. That's what did that. You guys did that. You turned me into someone who had no idea who the hell I was, where I was going, what I'm doing, what I want to be like, to a person who just wants to be a good human being in the rooms and outside of the rooms. And I hope that if this is your first convention, tomorrow morning go buy a ticket, come back next year. Make this a mandatory stop on your tour. Get spiritually refueled here. Go to that big meeting tonight, lose your hearing, lose your voice. It's fantastic. This is one of the best weekends that I have all year long, and if this is your first convention, like, welcome, and keep coming back. I'm really proud of you for being here, and I'm proud of all of us for being here. I love you guys.
I'm Good afternoon, Darren. On behalf of Orca, I'd like to thank Maurice and Joe for sharing their experience. Okay, so we'll close this meeting by circling up.
Come on, Kyle. Everybody say happy birthday to Kyle. Happy birthday, Kyle. You're an asshole. Thank you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kyle. Happy birthday to you.
I'm an addict. My name is Darren. Let this circle represent what we can't do
do for ourselves, we certainly can do together. There's never a back turned on us in NA. We'll have a moment of silence for the addict still suffering, the addict that was born today, the addict that died today, the addict that walked by not knowing that this circle of support was here for them. We'll also have gratitude in the fact that this circle would have been for you in the past. After that moment of silence, we will do the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Have that moment now. Who brought us here?
God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back, your works, your works, your works.
Hey, Marvin. Got a little on your feet there, buddy. I'm sorry about that. Good to see you. I gotta Even if you live in Mitchell, you're here. What's that smoke? Oh, nice.
I hear you.
You catch it on Precisely.
Well, I did the boxing mask.
Well, I'll meet those guys outside. They're going back, and I'll see you back there. Is that okay? I don't have to ask me permission.
I just want to know if I should expect that you're going to be in the room. I just know that I need like 20 minutes to myself. But if you're there, then you're there.
Well, I'm probably going to go down to the pool so you can get there.
Just to close my eyes, you know. And
I'm going to try and come out here.
I'm from Bradford.
I'd always go to this flea market.
It's not that bad for you now.
I'm perfect. Actually, so
Bulldogs.
yeah, the perfect Bulldogs. They're no more. No, when I was when we were regional champions, they were.
My nephew was playing for
At this meeting. And I
That's
did.
like
She was on our
when we're having emotion,
so she knew me.
want to.
And then I realized who it was.
No,
You're talking
I
about
get
there
angry.
in London, right?
Anger
Yeah.
Yeah.